here to talk about Game of Thrones. Yet it's not the TV show, oddly enough, though that is definitely an episode you can assume you'll see at some point, some sort of video on it. I have a bunch of ideas I'm tossing around for that. Anyways, I'm actually here to talk about Telltale Games, their rendition of Game of Thrones as a video game. I know in the past there's been a Game of Thrones game which was apparently received horribly, though I'd still like to go back and play it just to see for myself. But this is the traditional Telltale style, and if you know me in the past couple of years, Telltale has been huge for me. I try to get every Telltale release on or around release day. These ones are a couple days late on Game of Thrones, and I still need Tales from the Borderlands, which I'm excited to play. I just don't I don't really want to have the money to throw around right now. Even $5, every dollar counts right now. But it's the traditional Telltale scheme. If you've played any of those games, The Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us, and The Walking Dead Season 2, all ones I still want to talk about too. Telltale has gotten them into this really cool system now. They found what works. A way to integrate point-and-click adventure with a very strong emphasis on storytelling. And they're doing this with Game of Thrones, which is interesting. I didn't know how they were going to take it, because at first the teaser trailers were just text. You didn't see any visuals. I mean, I was thinking they would probably fall back in the Telltale art style. I didn't know if they were going to do something realistic. But yeah, they went with the general cel-shaded look that they do, that Telltale's known for. And I'm here to talk about the first episode, which I just played 2 days ago. Yes, yesterday. So, let's see. I have some pluses and minuses. Going into it, I have to say I was underwhelmed to begin with. I don't know why exactly, because upon reflecting and going back to it, I appreciate it more each time I think over it in my head, and then when I watch someone's playthrough of it, I liked it even more. Because the beginning is engaging, it gets you going from the beginning. Especially, I recommend definitely don't play the game if you aren't caught up on the TV show, because it actually throws a huge spoiler in there at the beginning. Starts you off with one of the most iconic scenes in the show / novel's history. It was really engaging from the beginning. But I immediately noticed the art style is a little different. They did this sort of oil painting thing where whatever they're focused on, whether it be a face or a whole body, that will just be the normal cel-shaded look, but then everything behind it will be oil painting, and like a kind of moving, an oil painting emotion kind of thing. Like even people in the distance will just suddenly be oil painting, even though in the foreground you have people in a normal cel-shaded look. So it's weird. I didn't like it at some points. At some points it just felt weird. And one of the other negatives is Telltale's engine in general is something I think needs to be improved upon. With every Telltale game, I just go in astounded by how awesome the story is. But then some of the gameplay just lacks, because it's mostly on the 360. It seems to be a problem on the console releases of a game, at least. For what I've seen, the PC version is a lot more smooth. I was actually contemplating doing the PC version, but my laptop's currently unoperatable, and I didn't want to wait however many months it's going to take for me to get the money to repair that. So I went with the 360 Xbox Live Arcade version. Just every time there seems to always be some sort of graphical issues I face, whether you'll just see occasional glitching, or blood will be spurting out, and then it'll just cut, and then it'll be splattered everywhere. It'll be really awkward, and it really actually does make a difference. I'm always obviously one of the people that pushes graphics don't make the game. I hardly consider graphics usually, but when it's a story-based game and there's very little gameplay to go off on, graphics becomes more important. Especially when you're taking a beloved franchise from television into a video game, or from novel to television to video game. whatever. It's important to focus on the small details at that point, and when you see things switching around during emotional scenes, it really does take you out of the experience, I've noticed. I'm not going to deny that, no matter how much I love Telltale games. It's one of the big things they need to work on. It doesn't seem like they're working on it that much. But I'll say it's a very immersive world. It puts you right into Game of Thrones. You get that Game of Thrones vibe again. The awesome opening, the redone intro from the television series. It's great to hear that. I wish I could just go on there and just play the intro by itself over and over again, though. That should be an option. But I got, right off the bat, it was a very Dragon Age and Fable kind of atmosphere for me. Because for a second I was like, wait, I'm playing Game of Thrones. I actually forgot. It felt like its own world. It felt like a normal medieval fantasy world, and I was really getting into it. I was like, well, I can't wait to delve more into this. And I'm like, oh, now it's a Telltale game. In a few hours I'll be done, and then I'll have to wait a month or so for the next episode. So that's disappointing in that regard. I wanted to just get into the world and explore more. It's one of those worlds where I wanted more exploration than story sometimes. But as with Telltale games, the exploration's a little shallow, which is something I hope they can expand upon in the future. Is more exploration, more gameplay, and whatnot. And they really, it's amazing how they get you engaged and interested in the characters so quickly. In fact, I think they excelled even against the TV show, because it's not like, oh, it's Tyrion, so I like him. No, there's some completely new characters that you never hear of in the show that they introduce right off the bat, and they get you attached to them. And then you're conflicted between all these choices they're throwing at you. They're throwing a lot of great decisions in a short amount of time. They're getting you attached to characters in a short amount of time, which is great. It's definitely Game of Thrones in that aspect, and it's impressive they can do that in a few hours. I just hope they can continue the momentum through the next episodes. It's actually a 6-episode series this time, which is cool, unlike the usual 5. They also do a really cool thing where they switch perspectives, and there's 3 different perspectives they follow. I don't know if we're going to be following 3 paths the whole storyline or what. I don't know if they're going to add new ones, take out ones, or anything like that. That would be interesting to see. But you follow a handmaiden of Marjorie Tyrell, which we all know from the TV show if you watched it, in the novels. And then we follow the son of a pig farmer who was the assistant for one of the bigger officers too. There's this whole history that goes into the House Forrester and the different families and stuff. It's really cool. It's a branch they don't focus on much in the TV show, is the Forrester house. But you do hear from some characters you might know, and then White Hills. And yet there's a lot of cameos from the show, which is really cool. They actually have the voices of the actors themselves, so Peter Dinklage voice Amelia Clarke, I'm assuming, in the future. What's her face? Oh my gosh. Drawing a blank. Cersei's voice is there. Marjorie's voice, Natalie Dormer's there. So it's really cool, actually. It genuinely sounds like the character, so it's really cool. It gets you hooked even more. It's impressive they got a hold of that. Telltale went from like nothing to a whole lot in a couple years. From the success of The Walking Dead, they've just gone way up. Now this year is their series of collaborations. They got Tales from the Borderlands, taking one franchise and doing this with it, and then we have Game of Thrones is just taking another franchise. It's really cool. Also, coming with using the actors' voices and characters from the show is also the problem that they're naturally not going to look up to par. You're going to expect more than what you get. You already see a lifelike representation of them on a TV show, so when you make a cartoon form, it's going to definitely seem toned down. I noticed that especially with Tyrion. His just facial gestures are weird, and again, it kind of took me out of it. Because it's like, yeah, okay, this is definitely you can't get as immersed as the Game of Thrones show when you're watching this, because you can definitely see the limitations in what they were doing. But yeah, overall, I actually really enjoyed the episode. I think it set a world that I'm really eager to explore and delve more into. And I think it's going to be cool to see all the Game of Thrones stuff happening. Telltale is one of my most beloved developers right now, like in my top 3 at least. They're ones I'm most anticipated for all the time. I always want them to win awards. I don't feel like they get enough recognition a lot. Like a lot of people talked about The Walking Dead for the first year, but in Season 2 I don't think got enough recognition. When I thought that was phenomenal. I have a lot to say about that, and there's a great development company. Just work on your engine and you could really have a thing going here. You need a reliable engine if you want to last in the industry. They'll be good for a couple years using that, but after that people aren't gonna, it's not gonna cut it. There are gonna be other companies doing what you do better. Overall, I give this 8.5 out of bleh. It was a good, yeah.